Okay, awesome. Well, welcome everybody to the ghostwriting and self-publishing panel. Before we jump right in, I just want to give a special shout out and thanks to Sandarius Smith. I know she's going to be coming in and out of this, but she has just done a tremendous job, her and the team over at SMU, in putting all of this together. I can remember, it feels like it was last week that we all jumped on a kickoff call and she was just giving us the vision for this big book festival. And now we're here, fast forward to today, and she's made it all happen. I told her the other day that as soon as all this is over with, I'm going to take her to the spa because she definitely deserves it. So anybody want to chip in on that, just let me know. But anyway, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Angie Ransome-Jones, and I am a national best-selling author and also a ghostwriter. As she said, I wrote my book, Path to Peace, A Guide to Managing Life After Losing a Loved One, and self-published it back in 2015. And shortly after that, I started ghostwriting. So I've been doing ghostwriting ever since then, and I love it. So that's why I'm more than happy to host this panel today. So we're going to jump right in. We only have an hour, and I know that 50 minutes goes fast. So I'm going to let our fabulous panelists introduce themselves, because if I do it, I'll take up the whole hour because there's so much that I want to say about them. I'm a huge fan of each and every one of them. They're also friends. They're my friends. I adore them, and I'm just so blessed to have them on this panel today. So we will start with Miss Marissa. You want to tell us where you hail from, a little bit about yourself, your background, anything else you want to share in 2 minutes or less.
Sure. Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm really honored. My name is Marissa Monteilh. I'm from Los Angeles, California, born and raised. I moved to Atlanta in 2005. But prior to that, I sat down in 1998 to write my life story, just to chronicle it, and it turned into a novel called May December Souls. So I self-published that in 2000, and then in 2002, HarperCollins bought it, and so that's how my journey started. Since then, I've written about 2000, wow, that's a lot. two dozen titles. Most of them are fiction, women's fiction, a couple of nonfiction titles. And I officially retired in 2017 from writing novels to make room for discovering ghostwriting and also working on some editing projects. So I've been doing ghostwriting on and off for the last few years, and I still write. I still write stories. I retired from being an author, but I didn't retire from writing because that is my true passion. So I might edit projects for individuals or just start stories on my own. I chronicled an outline for a nonfiction book about women learning to submit to men. So it's a relationship book, and my agent is shopping that. So I might dabble again into authorship, but we'll see what happens. But just continuing to write and enjoying seeing authors prosper from the ghostwriting projects that are brought to me.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you, Marissa. Lutishia.
Thank you so much. I am also just delighted to be on this panel and surrounded by such beauty and love and intelligence and greatness. So thank you, Angie, for asking me to be on. My name is Lutishia Lovely. I am the award-winning best-selling author of 50 novels and counting, along with my wonderful diva of an author of an alter ego, Zuri Day, who writes contemporary romance, and a pseudo that got thrown into the mix to write some contemporary suspense, and her name is Cameron King. My journey began quite by accident when Spirit told me of when this story dropped into my spirit about some scandal happening in a church. I'd never written a novel before, but I was a screenwriter and a stage play writer, actor, and radio personality. So my background had been in the arts for about 15 years before then. I thought, piece of cake, I'll write this book. And I did. I also self-published it with a very modest, very modest print run, and many in the industry know about my magical story of taking 3 of the last copies that I had to the book expo and getting a book deal. But in between 2004, when I independently wrote and published my first novel, and 2006, when I got my contract with Kensington and began writing contemporary fiction and romance for them, I worked in the area of ghostwriting, finding my own clients and either editing or ghostwriting their work. And I would not trade either the experience of self-publishing or of ghostwriting for anything, because both of them are great foundations for whatever you want to do in the writing world.
And amen. Thank you, Lutishia. All right, Miss Sandy, you're next.
Hi, I'm Sandy Lawrence. I live in Houston, Texas. I've been working with authors now for about 20 years in my own company, Perceptive Public Relations, and I just retired January 1st. And as a retired person, I'm just doing these kind of things, what's fun to me and what is my passion. I have been a publicist, worked with independent authors, self-published authors, and just in the last couple of years had so many people asking me, once they wrote the book, came to me and like, now what? Asking for my help in how to publish and when to publish. And so I started a membership group 3 years ago called Through the Eyes of Authors. And we work specifically, and I retired now and turned it over to my person that had been working with me for 10 years, but we work with authors to build a community of support. And what we do is help them find the resources like you guys, like Angie and you, Lutishia. I didn't know you were a ghostwriter also, but we look for ghostwriters, editors, for people that format the book, artists for the illustrations, whatever they need, we help them find it. And then we either help them find a publisher or we help them self-publish. So it's been I agree with you, Lutishia, it's absolutely been the best experiences I could possibly have. And Troy, I'd love to introduce you to one of my clients who is African American, and he has a publishing company in Virginia Beach, and I know he would love to get involved in your book club. And I've already looked up the event in Brooklyn. I'm going to let him know about that and that organization. So that's what I do, help my clients for whatever they need. That's where I am, to either introduce them to someone that can help them or I help them. So this has been great. Thank you, Angie, for inviting me to be on.
Thank you for being here. It's my honor for sure. All right, last but not least, Mr. Troy Johnson.
Hello, everyone. Angie, thanks for that heartfelt introduction. It is, you all are, I do consider you all friends. It's great working with people who are friends. The African American Literature Book Club, which I typically refer to as AALBC.com, because it's a lot more than just a book club. It may have started out that way, but we're perhaps the largest online retailer of books by or about people of African descent. It's a website that I built from scratch back in 1990. I started in 97, and I'm still the webmaster, so I wear a wide variety of hats. We sell books, we sell advertising, we help promote authors. The site has become really a resource. There are tens of thousands of pages on the website. It's a massive site, and readers and authors and publishers will find a wide variety of resources. Sandy referenced a part of the site where I track events, not just events featuring Black authors, but national events throughout the country, primarily book festivals and fairs. So you'll find the Dallas Literary Festival. In fact, as I look at the names here, I see Donna Gray Banks, who hosts a wonderful festival in Daytona. I also provide lists of bookstores across the country and a few internationally. As I look at the names, I see Emma Rogers, who's an iconic figure in Black books and Black bookstores. And if you don't know who she is, then you're missing out. The I'm fueled by what the people I mentioned, my co-panelists, the people in this audience. I'm fueled by their love of books. My niche is, again, books written by or about people of African descent, but you'll find a wide variety of authors on that website, on ALBC.com. I consider myself my best customer because I've learned so much. I've met so many people, and my mission is just to share that information and those books with readers like most of you who are out here listening, and writers, of course. So I'll leave it at that. But again, I'm happy to be here and looking forward to seeing what comes out of this panel.
Awesome. Happy to have you. Thank you for those awesome introductions. I told you guys you were in for a treat today. And when I saw Emma Rogers, I was like, it's such an honor to have her on. So anyway, so we're going to jump right in. The first part of our discussion is going to be devoted to the whole ghostwriting craft. And then the second half, we'll kind of dive into self-publishing and PR. So I believe you can submit any questions that you have within the chat, and then we'll try to tackle those if we have time at the end. I'm hoping that we will. So let's jump right in. So Miss Marissa, please tell us how you got into ghostwriting and what inspired you to be a ghostwriter.
Well, I'll be honest, I did not set out to be a ghostwriter. I have a friend who works, actually she works at a doctor's office, and she's read all of my, she'd read all of my books when she called me in 2014. And she said, we have a client who's a celebrity who asked if I knew of any ghostwriters. And I said, let me see if Marissa Monteilh does that. And so that individual called me and we talked and we met, and that's how it started. I did a lot of research, came up with a contract, came up with a proposal, submitted a sample, and through all of these processes, I found a different vibe in writing for someone else with their intentions. And so that's how it started. And then that client referred me to someone else. So I came up with Silent Ink, got the website, and what started happening was just having it on Facebook and doing advertising, and then word of mouth. I kept getting inbox messages. So that's how it started. In doing that, in transitioning along with the deadlines of titles that were due at a certain time, and all authors know why they call them deadlines. They're truly, it can be pressure. If you have a year to turn in a book, you can't start it 2 months before. It doesn't work that way. So the timing factor and working in the ghostwriting projects, I found it to be exhilarating and sometimes exhausting. But that's how I got started. A friend referred me, and then the work started coming in. So I had the writing down, the ability to write down, but to understand the process of getting information from individuals who have their story to tell, not my story. They're not my characters. So giving them character resumes and interviewing them on audio at a location in person and asking specific questions to get those stories and those answers and questions out. So that's how it started, and it's just taken off from there, and it's been a wonderful journey. It's creative. Every situation's different. Every quote is different. Every manuscript is written. Is different. Every thought is different. And so it's been challenging at times, especially before I retired, just to work out the time factor. But it has been one of the best gifts of my career, to see them take that manuscript and either get a deal or self-publish it on their own and help people. So that's how I got started.
Yeah. And I would say the same thing as far as how I got started, like we talked about, by accident. And one of the things that I know, I shared this with you, Marissa, the other day, I'm just so grateful to her, because when I had my first offer to do a ghostwriting project, and I called her up, I think we had maybe waved at each other at one of the NBCC festivals, but she didn't know me from Adam. And, I said, hey, I've got this project, think I want to be a ghostwriter, I want to try it. And she just you know, opened up herself, her resources, everything to me. And I can honestly say that I wouldn't be where I am today in my ghostwriting career if it wasn't for her. So I'm sincerely appreciative, you and Lutishia, because she's my spirit sister and I call on her all the time, you know, when I'm stuck on a project or just, you know, have a brain fart. And so I think that goes a long way. We don't do enough of that, to me, in this business. So just very appreciative of all of you for extending yourselves the way you do. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And Lutishia, I'm going to have you actually tell us too how you got started, because you have a very interesting story.
Yes, indeed. So it was 2004, and my favorite job that I had ever had in the world ended. I was the managing editor of a holistic magazine, a regional publication called Holistic Living. And I just loved everything about that job, you know, working on subjects that were very near and dear to me because I practice a holistic lifestyle, veganism, you know, the whole thing. And the job folded. Unfortunately, the company folded. And I was sitting at my desk going through various websites, trying to get my mindset back into working a job for, you know, something outside of writing because it ended very unexpectedly. And it's like, oh my gosh, that, you know, I need to get something. So I started looking for sales jobs, marketing jobs, administration jobs, anything that I felt like I could just jump into quickly. And the more I did that, the more my stomach roiled. You know, it was just like, and so those of you who know me know I can be a bit dramatic. And I literally was sitting at my desk and I pounded my fist on the on the desk and I declared, I am a writer.
I can see that. I can visualize that.
I literally remember doing that because it was so anti everything of who I am to look for those other things. So I took a huge leap of faith because I didn't have a large savings account or, you know, someone else taking care of me. But I took a huge leap of faith and I said, you know what? I am not going, the only positions I'm going to look for are writing positions. Now, the reason I say this is a huge leap of faith is because my degree is in fashion merchandising, not journalism or creative writing or English or any of that. And I'll never forget, I was looking through Craigslist. Yes, guys, Craigslist. I went to the writers. There's a section for writers and editors, I believe is how it's divided. And I put my information up and I began looking for people who were looking for writers. And I happened to meet this absolutely dear lady who we are friends to this day. Her name is Mickey Guzman. She's a former Palm Beach socialite, and she has quite a story to tell. In fact, the name of her novel is What a Ride. And when it comes to her life, man, she is still riding through it here in her late 80s now. I knew nothing about ghostwriting. I knew nothing about the publishing industry. I had independently published my novel by that time, but barely. So I knew nothing about nothing, guys. But I went over to meet her and we hit it off. And she had a very clear vision for her story and a very clear voice, which was very helpful to me as my first project, since I had no idea what I was doing. And that project took about a year to complete. I didn't know. It was like I handled that job like you would a regular job. So I set it up like hourly and it was crazy. But anyway, it was an absolutely beautiful experience. And like the panel has said, Marissa, and you also, Angie, every person is different. Every voice is different. Every story is different. But having that cushion for almost a year that I worked with Mickey, it really helped me not only hone my craft, but kind of get comfortable in that role of ghostwriter. I too never set out to be a ghostwriter. I didn't really even contemplate that, but I did set out to have a career and a life doing what I loved, being my own boss. You know, those were my parameters. And so I'm listed on her book as the editor. And I do recommend all of you to go to Amazon and purchase her novel. It's called What a Ride. And you'll see her, well, it's not her leg, but it very much represents her lifestyle, her leg up in the air with fishnet stockings on, baby. That's her. So that's how it got started. And I only worked in ghostwriting for a short period of time because, like Marissa says, when you have due lines for for editors and contractually, like if you really can't miss them, it becomes really difficult to try to juggle all of that. And I've just recently kind of tapped my pinky toe, Angie knows, into the possibility of getting back into maybe just a little ghostwriting. But those, I wrote 6 novels, 6 or 7 novels as a ghostwriter, and they were so diverse. If I have time, I'll share another story later about my ghostwriting client with a racist Jew. Okay, I'll tell you.
Oh, wow.
I'll tell you about that.
Yeah.
He was so racist, but I was his ghostwriter, and I was like, Marty, you can't say that. He would be making these comments and using these, these names, and I'd be like, Marty, you can't say that,
Yeah.
like calling people out of their names and our whole cultures and stuff. And that was one of my fun, but there's a background to his story that I'll share later. I don't want to hog the mic, but that's how I got started. I too just kind of stumbled into it, and what a great experience to stumble into.
Yeah. And you know what, it has been, because like you said, everybody is different and it really stretches you as a writer. So, with me going into it and having my first, it's really helped me to grow. I've done all different types of genres, dealt with all types of people and everything. And I like it. The deadlines, yeah, they can be hell sometimes, but I think, like you said, it just kind of challenges you to be better and to do better. So, and speaking of that, that's a segue into my next question. So, and Marissa, you alluded to this earlier about the challenges of ghostwriting. So I know early on it was a little bit difficult for me to go to a book signing, and I'm so proud of this project that I've sweat, blood, tears, you name it, into, and then I'm in the back, and the author is there and beaming, which of course, you're always happy for the author, but it took me, I really had to humble myself as a ghostwriter and think about, okay, you did all this, but you're here, you were hired to do this job, and it's their time to shine. And you just kind of sit back and you watch that and you relish in it a little bit. But tell me, what were your biggest challenges as far as ghostwriting?
Well, yeah, I can understand that. If you're and you're the ghost, so it's like you can't say anything. You're proud of them, but you did write that story. So like my contract says, they're the author, I'm the ghostwriter. So I'm not the author, I'm the ghostwriter. But I really do think that one of the challenges, as we said before, is the timing factor, because my contracts are very specific as far as how many chapters per month of a goal I have to get to that due date. So if I have a 9-month plan and I'm doing 3 chapters a month per month, and I have other projects, things change as well. Mm-hmm. So I usually ask for most of the amount that I'm charging up front, or even broken into 2 parts. But if you break it into monthly parts and things don't work out, you have to adjust and then readjust an amendment, and then it pushes it back. And then that's time that you could have given someone else, or, so managing the time factor in that way. I have the different types of clients I have are similar to when I first started writing. Most authors know you get readers who come to you and say, I have a story, will you write my book? They want you to write their story because something happened in their life that they want to share, their experience, but they don't consider themselves writers. So they have not written one word, and they will, and you write all of those words. So if you're doing an 80,000 word project, you do that. Or I have someone who's attempted to write, and 10 chapters in, they realize they're not a writer. I tell them, you are a writer. Your writing may not be author ready. So, and then the other ones where it's a completed manuscript, but it is not formatted. There's no quotation marks. There's a repeated conversation. So a lot of that is revising. So it just depends. I might I might not have time to take on a project or think I might be able to help them as much, but I tend to try to help them.
Right.
So I'll do a reduced rate, or I'll look at it or refer them to someone in that way. And I think sometimes understanding that a lot of people just are not they're not to the point of being an author, because not everyone is a professional writer.
That's right.
It's a gift and it's a passion. And when people find that out and they get frustrated, just talking to them or visiting with them, I want to do something for them. And
Yeah.
sometimes I do that, and I'm glad that I do, but it really does help people out. So that's kind of a downside, just with my personality. I take things on that I probably shouldn't.
Yeah. And
and help them out, because it is expensive. It is very expensive. And as you know, earning money on our own, if we're self-publishing or even what's traditional, it can not, sometimes it's lucrative and sometimes it's not. So I don't want to charge a lot of money up front. So sticking to that factor, and being understanding about the end result can sometimes be a challenge.
Yeah, that's good stuff. I would completely agree with everything you said. So Lutishia, I want to ask you, just for somebody that's out there in the few remaining minutes that we have for this segment, what would you tell somebody, number one, that is looking to get into ghostwriting, or number two, somebody that needs a ghostwriter? What are I guess your top 3 tips that you would give that person?
Well, my first tip that I would give anybody who is going to write anything is to do the work. I think that so many people who want to write, who have a story, especially these days, there's no time put into preparation anymore. And I am not one to tell anyone how to do their thing. They can do it however they want, but the reason my career has lasted as long as it has, almost 17 years in counting and 50 books later and multiple publishers, etc., is because I did the work up front. I was already a writer, so I did have, even though my degree isn't in writing, I had worked in radio for years. I'd worked as a news editor. I'd written articles for newspapers. I'd done a lot of writing. I'd written screenplays. I'd written stage plays. Once I got into the publishing game, after writing my novel, I did do a lot. I did 1.5 years of research into the publishing arena and the background, and found out as much as I could just about the game, whether I'm writing, whether I'm going to publish it myself or not. Just becoming knowledgeable helped me have the confidence. I would also recommend, if you haven't, to take a few writing classes, join a writing group, go online. Online is an immeasurable resource of information on not only writing, but then once you do want to stretch into ghostwriting, resources for where you can go for clients for ghostwriting, networking. There's just so many little things that I would recommend for any writer, whether you're ghostwriting, whether you're writing fiction, or whether you're writing nonfiction. Network, prepare, research, things like that, just so that you can feel comfortable in the arena that you're stepping into.
Yeah, that is great advice. And I know, like you said, the writing groups, Ann Fields is out there. She is the founder of the Writer's Block here in Dallas. And that's a group that I just recently joined, and they are just a wealth of information and resources. So I definitely recommend that. That's good stuff. That's good stuff. Now, let me ask you ladies, do you use an outline? I think I know the answer. Marissa, you use an outline when you write?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I didn't initially, but it is a lifesaver. I definitely outline. I think it's, and I tell other people, if you can think of 30 scenes, then do an outline and number the pages, chapter 1 through chapter 30, with a one-liner at the top, the club scene, the church scene, the whatever the scene is. And if you're not in the mood to write chapter 1, 2, or 3, write chapter 5. But I like to know where I'm going initially. But as authors know, they never really go that way by the time it's done. And the characters, like Eric Jerome Dickey said, let your characters surprise even you. Don't ever think you know what move they're going to make. But yes, outlines really do help to keep writers organized and see the big picture as they start.
Yeah. It's definitely a roadmap. You too, Lutishia? I know you.
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't write extremely detailed. Outlines, I write, as Marissa said, I give room for what the characters are going to do. My characters, I've never had a book turn out like the outline, you know what I mean? Like
Yes.
exactly like the outline, but it's a roadmap, it's a guide. It gives you direction. And then as the book continues to develop, those directions can change. But I find outlines to be very anchoring
Yes.
and oftentimes will help me move along. Like as Marissa said, sometimes there's a scene that, like right now, I'm dealing with a book where the middle, it's just, it's a bit problematic for me and challenging for me right now. So I went to the end and wrote the ending, because it's like I knew how it was going to end. And that, kind of helped me figure out, okay, this is how I'm going to get, arc over to there. So I think outlines are extremely valuable. However, every writer is different and there's no right way to do it. So it works for me, and I would definitely recommend at least trying it to see if it works for you.
Yep. Yep. Agree. Here. So I don't see any questions in the chat, but I want to encourage everybody, if you have questions, then go ahead and put them in there. That way, I think we will have time at the end of this. And of course, Lutishia, Marissa, I want you to stick around because I think you can also lend some of your expertise to the conversations that we're going to jump into on self-publishing and promoting. So Miss Sandy, ladies first, we'll start with you. And now that our author, whether they've hired a ghostwriter or they've written it themselves, now that they have this fabulous manuscript that's going to be a bestseller one day, what is the first thing that you would say that they need to do to promote that book? Uh-oh, you're on mute, Sandy.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, my dog was barking. I had to.
That's okay.
So we're assuming, I guess, that they're going to self-publish, because the first thing I do is find out, how do you want to publish? Do you want to, look for an agent, look for the traditional publisher, or do you want to publish it yourself, or look for a small independent publisher? So the first thing is to make a decision how to publish, and then stick with that, and then also write, make sure the contracts, and I help them with some of that. I'm not a lawyer, so I don't do anything legal, but I can read through it and see where, look, in case you're ever going to do a audiobook, you sign this, you're giving away the audiobook rights to this publisher, and you might want to consider. So I do those kind of things to help them up front in the beginning. And once they decide, if they choose self-publishing, which the majority of them do because they don't want to wait on an agent or a publisher, then my strongest recommendation to them is, make this book quality as good as anything that would come out of Random House. Because if you take the cheap route, which I know a lot of self-publishers that I've met in the last 20 years did, if you don't get a good editor, if you don't have someone professional doing the layout and all of that, then you not only hurt yourself, you hurt the whole self-publishing industry. Because that's been our the perception for a long time, is that this person self-published because they couldn't get a publisher. And that's not true. The truth is, if you're going to self-publish, it means you become the publisher and you take on the risk of making money or not, or being profitable or not. And you take on the responsibility for making it a quality product. So that's my very first recommendation, is choose which way you're going to go. And then if you're going to go with the traditional, then go look for an agent, because publishers do not take unsolicited manuscripts anymore, or go with a small publisher, and the small publisher may charge you something to help with their expenses, depending on, I work with publishers as well as authors, and some of them are traditional. They charge nothing. They get the royalties, they get a percentage of the royalties, and that's all that they charge. So, basically do your homework and make sure the choice you make is the right one for you and your book. Some books do great on self-published, some of them not as well. So just do your homework.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Definitely good advice. And Troy, what about you? I know you see a lot. You deal with so many different people, from authors to publishers, self-publisher, the gamut. So, what would you say are some of the things that you've seen in your line of work, and what would be your recommendation, I guess, for somebody trying to promote their book? You're on mute, Troy. You're on mute.
Sorry about that.
That's
I would echo what Sandy said, and that is that you should create a professional looking product. You should have someone professionally design the cover, design the internals, and absolutely have your book edited. So you want to start with create a quality product. The other thing that I noticed is that over the last 2 decades, that I've been doing this, and indeed it's closer to 25 years that I've been observing writers, like when Lutishia mentioned Book Expo, that going there, I actually remember her there. I exhibited that at that Book Expo. But when you talk about research, when you talk about, you have to do that. And probably more importantly is that you have to invest some money. I mean, it's either you're going to invest a tremendous amount of time, but producing a quality book and promoting it and marketing it requires money. And indeed, I would suggest that that is probably the biggest expense associated with getting a book out there. So if you are writing a book and you want it to be read widely, um, that's a different thing than if you are just writing a book and you just want your friends and family to read it. But if you're writing a book that you want to be read widely, you have to invest in promotion, marketing, advertising. You have to promote the book. It's time consuming and it can be expensive. So, but it's something that you have to do, because just because you write it doesn't mean anyone's going to read it. People have to know about it. So I know people like Marissa and Lutishia and Angie. You all do events. I mean, you make yourself known. You travel. You are. It's it shouldn't be a characteristic of an author to be personable and friendly and outgoing, but personable and friendly and outgoing authors do better than the ones who are sequestered and shy and um, you know, oppressively introverted, so it's, I created this triangle some years ago and I called it Troy's Triangle for publishing success. And on one apex is a quality product, another one is money, and another one is time and energy. And you need two of them. So I've seen books that that weren't great books, but the person had a lot of money and a lot of energy, and they marketed the heck out of it, and the book did really well. They got publishing deals, and I've seen quality products, that the person didn't put any time and energy into it and didn't have any money, and the book died on the vine. It just never went anywhere. And those could be books published by major publishers too. So you have to, whether you're self-published, published by a major house, you have to actively and aggressively and continuously promote your work. There's just no other way around it. Are there exceptions? Sure, but they're exceedingly rare. So I would, those two things, invest in an editor and invest in marketing. Marketing is the overall umbrella phrase that includes advertising, promotion, building a mailing list, reaching out to booksellers, developing relationships with booksellers, getting to know them. All of that matters. And I don't want to ramble here, but those two things, actively and aggressively promote and invest in an editor.
Yep. I would agree again. And those are, I think you kind of honed in on something. Those are two of the major pitfalls that I see is when folks come to me and they approach me about helping them with their book project, the finances, and I'm just really honest with them. I say, be ready to drop at least 7 to 10 grand off the bat, and that doesn't even include my fee half the time, but it does take some money, and it takes money to make money. I tell them that all the time. So That's good advice. I do have a couple of questions that are in the chat that I want to quickly ask. Okay, so from Helen Kalmans, I hope I'm not slaughtering your name. Question about self-publishing. How do you get reviews? This is a great question. She says, I ran a Goodreads giveaway, had 1,000 sign up, gave away 100 copies and got 2 reviews. Thankfully, they were great. That's a plus. But yeah, how do you get good reviews or reviews, period? Sandy, you have any recommendations on that?
Well, I've been part of it, or of this review swap. I'm not sure I 100% recommend it, because I'm not going to give a positive review for a book that's not a good book. However, I did, and there's people in all of the groups. So one of the things I suggest is join every Facebook group that has anything to do with marketing books or promoting books or any of that, and then ask the question there, would anyone like to review the book? I did that, and someone, so that's why I'm a little hesitant now, because this is the first time I've been asked to review one that I wasn't 100% sure about. But review swaps is a good thing. Another good thing is just to, ask for a review. I always tell my group, one of the things I consider is the book launch team. So everybody in this group is expected that if you want us to help you promote your book, then you help promote all the other books. And so, and we do that, and they're really a great group about doing that. And one of the things I always say is read the book. We make it available when it first comes out for 99 cents or whatever. But even if it's $10, that's not like a lot of money. So get the book, read it, and write a positive review. Amazon's very picky. If you're writing it on Amazon, which is where we usually post our reviews, Goodreads is owned by Amazon, so it's kind of the same thing, but we focus on Amazon. And so when we do the reviews, so Amazon will require that you buy the book before you can review it. I didn't know that for a while, and I was reading them through Kindle Unlimited or whatever, and it would always take my review down. And then I realized I have to buy the book. So since I bought it, I review all of our clients' books. And so that is the big thing. But I can tell you that getting reviews, you have to be willing to give reviews. And getting reviews is sometimes very challenging.
Yeah, definitely. So here's another question. And Troy, I'll ask you about this one. We know you have your big, fabulous site that you do great advertising work, but what are some other recommended advertising? Social media, a couple of people are asking about social media. Is that the best method, or what are some suggestions you have in terms of affordable advertising?
Oh, that's a great question, and I'll do my best to answer it. First, I want to I just want to go back to reviews for a second. I've published over the years well over 1,000 book reviews, and for ALBC, book reviews is a fee-based service, not different than Kirkus or any of the other outfits that charge for reviews. The thing about reviews is you want a review written by a professional reviewer. That would be my opinion. And you want the review published someplace where people are going to read it. So there are a wide variety of options. I would consider Kirkus Discoveries, AOBC, depending on the type of book and the audience that you're trying to reach. Obviously, well, maybe not obviously, the gold standard for book reviews is to score one by the New York Times. But again, that's very, very few people will get a New York Times book review. But the reason it's so important is because, I read the Sunday Times and look at those reviews. I don't go to Goodreads and Amazon to read book reviews because literally anyone could publish a review there. And we all know that sometimes authors or others will snipe at authors and give them a unfavorable review just because, and then we know fans of the author or friends of the author will give a favorable review. So the key is Sandy mentioned when she writes reviews, she's not going to give a favorable review if the book isn't any good, in her opinion. And I think that's important. So if I read a Sandy review, I can be confident that it's going to be quality, but I don't know everyone else. So it's helpful to be able to get to know the person who's reviewing the book, understand their sensibilities, and even if they give it a negative review, you might decide that you like the book and review it despite that negative review. So I've published unfavorable reviews of books that authors have shared those reviews, or readers have decided to review the book nonetheless because they were familiar with the reviewer. In terms of advertising, AOBC is a great platform for people who are trying to target readers of Black books. So it doesn't mean that you have to be a Black writer or a Black publisher, but if you think that's your audience, AOBC is a great platform for that, and so we do sponsored newsletters. I send a newsletter out most weeks, and at the very top of each newsletter is a banner that's a sponsored banner. It's mentioned at the bottom of the newsletter who the sponsor is, and the rest is editorial. There are also dedicated newsletters where you can buy out the whole newsletter, and I'll send it to my mailing list. And of course, there's ads that you can place on the site. Another popular place for advertising is using Google AdWords. So, Google today is they are effectively a monopoly when it comes to online advertising. You can advertise on Google or you can advertise on social media, and that's pretty much it. Sites like AOBC are rare in the sense that there are just not a lot of sites that get a lot of traffic where your banner ad's going to be seen. So one of the things you want to do as an advertiser on any of these platforms is really look at how those ads are performing. And you can define what performance looks for you. But at the end of the day, for me, when I advertise or when I promote something, I want to see how much traffic that comes back to my site. Yeah. So I noticed that when I advertise on social media, I don't get people back to the site, which is my goal. So if that's your goal, great. If it's, so you have to look at what's happening. If your goal is sales, you have to look at, how are those sales being generated? Are you selling the books, directly on social media? Do you expect people to come back to your site? Do you expect them to go to Amazon? Whatever, you have to be able to measure that to look at it. When I look at advertisers on my site, I look at something called, how many times is the ad viewed? So a typical ad may be viewed a 250,000 times a month on the site. And then I look at how many times that ad is clicked. And then on your end, so all of the traffic that comes to your site, how many people actually buy, or whatever platform that you send those readers to. Some readers direct their ads on AOBC to their AOBC page. And they do that because the sales that I generate go towards my bestsellers list. And if they make the bestsellers list, they'll get an extra amount of free promotion because I'm promoting the bestsellers list every other month.
I think that we're going to have to go ahead and wrap up. So sorry to interrupt. Thank you so much.
That's okay. That's okay. I was afraid of that. Thank you, Troy. This could easily be a 2-part. This should be a 2 hours. So I'm going to work on that. I promise. That's my promise to you to work on, because there's so many other questions that are in the chat. I'm hoping I've tried to copy them so I can save them and hopefully respond some kind of way. And I'll work with Sandaria on that. But before we go, I just want each of you to tell the folks out there where they can find you on social media. So Marissa, we'll start with you.
I'm sorry, Angie, we don't have any time left.
We don't?
No,
okay.
We got to let the other panel start.
Okay, I'm sorry.
But we will send it to me and I'll post it in social media and on the website and everything.
Okay.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Enjoyed
Thank
everyone.
you.
God bless.
2 other panels after this. happening at the 11 o'clock hour. This is chaos. Yeah, chaos in the culture, poetry panel, and sharing stories of change, resilience, and resistance with our children and youth. So be sure to check those out.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Great job, everybody.
Thank you. Good to see
Troy,
everyone.
I'd love to get